Dean Martin, the suave Hollywood legend, Rat Pack icon, and the embodiment of effortless cool. Known for his smooth baritone voice, mischievous grin, and the image of a man who seemed to live life without a care, Martin captivated audiences for decades. On screen, he was always relaxed, often with a cigarette in one hand, a cocktail in the other, effortlessly charming his way through songs, films, and television appearances. To the world, he seemed untouchable, a playboy with endless charisma, someone whose life was an unending parade of glamorous parties, showbiz friends, and late-night escapades. But behind the public persona, whispers persisted. Was this the real Dean Martin? Was the carefree, womanizing, cocktail-swinging man the person his family knew? For decades, the mystery persisted, fueling rumors, gossip, and speculation. Now his daughter, Deanna Martin, has stepped forward to finally confirm what many of us suspected all along. She reveals the truth behind the myth, offering an intimate glimpse into the private life of a man whose legend has been larger than life. Tonight we peel back the layers, separating the man from the persona, and uncover the real Dean Martin, a father, husband, and disciplined performer whose genius extended far beyond what the cameras ever captured. Dean Martin is a name that evokes instant recognition, conjuring images of a man whose charm seemed effortless, whose laughter was infectious, and whose performances exuded a casual sophistication. For decades, he was a staple of Hollywood's golden era, appearing alongside the Rat Pack, headlining Las Vegas shows, and starring in films that showcased both his acting and musical talents. On television, he was the archetype of suave nonchalance, always the playful entertainer with a cigarette in hand and a mischievous grin that made audiences swoon. However, as his daughter Deanna Martin has now revealed, much of what the public assumed about Dean's off-screen life was a carefully constructed illusion. The stories of heavy drinking, endless partying, and reckless womanizing, which seemed to define his life, were largely exaggerated, if not entirely fabricated, for public consumption. According to Deanna, many of the cocktails Martin appeared to enjoy were in fact non-alcoholic, cleverly disguised drinks, often apple juice or soda. The flirtations and charismatic antics the world adored were amplified for stage and camera, part of the persona that Martin meticulously cultivated. Behind this crafted image, however, was a man deeply devoted to his family. At home, he was far from the carefree playboy the public believed him to be. Dinner tables were sacred, and evenings often centered around quiet family moments rather than Hollywood revelry. His commitment to family life, attending his children's events, engaging in meaningful conversations, and maintaining a stable household, stood in stark contrast to the wild reputation that preceded him. This duality, public legend versus private reality, highlights the complexity of Dean Martin's life. It underscores the delicate balance he maintained between the persona audiences loved and the man his family cherished. In a world that thrives on spectacle and myth, Martin's genius lay not just in his talent, but in his ability to perform a role while remaining grounded, disciplined, and devoted behind closed doors. Deanna's revelations provide a rare, intimate insight into a Hollywood icon whose legacy is richer, more complex, and far more human than the public had ever imagined. While Dean Martin's public image suggested a life filled with glamour, indulgence, and relentless socializing, his private world was defined by a profound devotion to family. Deanna Martin recalls her father as a loving, gentle, and attentive parent whose greatest priority was his children. Despite the whirlwind of show business, Dean ensured that family life remained consistent, meaningful, and filled with love. Dinner was a ritual, a time when he could step away from the glare of Hollywood and simply be a father. He played games with his children, shared advice, and created a nurturing environment that countered the chaos of celebrity life. Deanna emphasizes that her father's commitment went beyond mere presence. It was about quality, intention, and emotional engagement. Even during the height of his fame, when public expectation painted him as a man constantly surrounded by parties and late-night entertainment, Dean made a conscious choice to be home with his children. Letters, phone calls, and personal visits became instruments of connection, bridging the gap between public life and private devotion. Beyond daily interactions, Dean also modeled a work ethic and sense of responsibility, showing his children that success required discipline, preparation, and care. The contrast between his private demeanor and public persona was stark, and Deanna notes that this duality was intentional. Hollywood often celebrates excess, glamorizes indulgence, and simplifies complex individuals into caricatures, but Dean Martin consciously resisted such reduction. He understood that fame was fleeting, that image was malleable, and that the true measure of a man lay in his devotion, love, and loyalty. By maintaining this balance, Dean Martin ensured that his children had stability, love, and a clear understanding of who he truly was. Deanna's recollections challenge the long-held assumptions about her father's life, revealing a man whose brilliance was not only artistic, but also moral. A father whose legacy is anchored not only in entertainment history, but in the lives of his children, who witnessed his authentic self beyond the stage lights, microphones, and cameras. In understanding this side of Dean, fans gain a new perspective. The man whose public image was iconic was also a private hero, whose life was defined by devotion, integrity, and love. Dean Martin's iconic image, the effortlessly charming, cocktail-swinging crooner, was more than personality. It was an expertly crafted performance. Deanna Martin explains that the persona audiences adored was often a carefully curated shtick designed to entertain and maintain a sense of mystique. On stage, in films, and on television, he embodied relaxed sophistication, playful irreverence, and nonchalant charm. But behind the humor, the drinks, and the flirtations, Dean Martin was a disciplined professional who meticulously prepared for each performance. Rehearsals, timing, and careful planning underpinned the illusion of effortless spontaneity. The carefree playboy persona wasn't accidental. It was a strategy, an art form that required thought, precision, and dedication. While audiences assumed his nights were filled with indulgence, many evenings were quietly devoted to preparation, reflection, or spending time with close friends who understood the man behind the image. This dual existence illustrates the pressures of celebrity in Hollywood's golden era. Maintaining such a public persona demanded energy, creativity, and vigilance. The performance was not mere deception. It was a vehicle that allowed Dean to control his career, maintain his mystique, and protect his private life. The shtick, though playful and charming, was also genius. It allowed him to captivate audiences for decades while carefully guarding the aspects of his life that truly mattered: his family, his health, and his personal integrity. Deanna Martin's insights reveal that what the world saw was both real and unreal simultaneously. A brilliant entertainer whose public image was an extension of his artistic craft, designed to enchant the world while preserving the truth of his private life. By understanding this, fans and historians alike can appreciate not only the man who sang, joked, and charmed, but the careful, intentional architect behind the legend. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Dean Martin's life, hit like, subscribe, and comment below with your favorite Dean Martin song or memory. Your support allows us to uncover more hidden truths about Hollywood legends. Dean Martin's enduring legacy has long been associated with his work as a Rat Pack member, his smooth voice, and his signature style. But through Deanna Martin's revelations, we now understand a far more nuanced picture of the man himself, a father, husband, and intentional performer whose life extended beyond the glitz and glamour of show business. By confirming that much of his public persona was crafted, Deanna allows fans to see a man who carefully balanced fame with responsibility, spectacle with devotion. The myth of the relentless drinker and flirt is replaced with an understanding of a man who prioritized family and authenticity behind closed doors. This revelation redefines Martin's legacy, emphasizing that greatness lies not just in talent and charm, but in discipline, loyalty, and the love one shows in private. He was not only an entertainer, but a father who understood the weight of responsibility, the importance of connection, and the value of protecting loved ones from the glare of public attention. Dean Martin's story is now richer, more human, and profoundly inspiring. It demonstrates that true brilliance encompasses both public success and private virtue, that a life of fame can coexist with humility and dedication. Through Deanna's voice, we see the real Dean Martin, a man whose heart was as strong as his voice, whose devotion to family was as enduring as his songs, and whose legacy is both timeless and deeply human. By understanding the real Dean Martin, we honor not just the entertainer, but the father, husband, and man who quietly lived his life with integrity, grace, and love, leaving behind a legacy that is far more profound than the world had ever imagined.